Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Grace Hatfield with EHS Daily Advisor, and thank you for tuning in to today's episode of Faces of EHS. This is a segment where we feature environmental health and safety professionals and highlight their journeys and hear their thoughts about EHS trends and issues. Today, we are joined by Amandeep Beesla, who is the Director of Safety, Insight, and Innovation at Salus. So, hi, how are you today?
Hey, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well. So let's jump right in. Can you tell me a little bit about your position at Salus and what you do as a company?
Yeah, absolutely.
Hmm.
So Salus is a safety software platform. We
Hmm.
are SaaS, very young, and
Hmm.
we are so I'll talk a little bit about the owner, just to take it
Hmm.
one step back. So myself and the owner, we've known each other for many a years. And
Hmm.
so when Salus first approached me with regard to the position, because I had known the CEO, the co-founder, and we
Hmm.
had that rapport established, and I knew exactly what his vision was.
Hmm.
Instantly, I was very passionate about it, and so I've been at the position for about a year now. I am their safety director of safety insight and innovation.
Hmm.
So basically, it has to do with thought leadership and really getting in touch with the community, the construction industry as well, and providing not only that service, but it's an evolution in the way people think and
Hmm.
digitizing health and safety management systems. So, looking at SMS and how to progress and further evolve, doing it, making sure that everyone's safe and giving them not only the software platform, but also encouraging that thought leadership piece as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. So how did you get your start in EHS?
That's a really good question. So I've been in health and safety ever since I can remember. When I
Hmm.
was younger, I was brought up in a trucking family, and so
Oh, wow.
my dad used to teach me how to be, and like rightfully so as any parent. But
Hmm.
with him, it was slightly different. He'd be like, "Okay, well, you need to make sure you put your seatbelt on before we go because just in case." Or before you get into your vehicle and you start operating it, always make sure that you do a walk around. And to this
Hmm.
day, I still do that. And so it's just interesting how it worked. When I was younger, I would say probably in my teens, that's when my dad brought me on board in terms of dealing with different government agencies, dealing with all
Hmm.
of the documentation, whatever it
Hmm.
is that he needed. And it wasn't just health and safety, it was conducting bids and how to do accounts as well, for example. And so
Yeah.
learning how like a small business works, how it functions, dealing with customers, making sure that the projects are on time, and not only health and safety again, but looking at operations as well. And so it
Hmm.
was almost like I was being groomed for health and safety.
Yeah.
When I was 18, I got on with CATSA, which is the Canadian Air Transport Security Authority. So it falls
Hmm.
right under the Department of Transport.
Hmm.
So I was working at YVR Vancouver International Airport. I worked for the Solicitor General, and then I took a chance and I went up to the oil fields in Fort McMurray, Alberta. I was
Hmm.
running heavy equipment there, and that's when I got back into health and safety because I had that knowledge and that underlying foundation. I went
Hmm.
back to school, started taking all my courses, doing all my health and safety related coursework classes, and then I got back into health and safety. So it's touched, HSE has touched my life in various points. And
Yeah.
so that's kind of the progression there.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, so other than your dad, who's been your biggest influence in the industry?
In the industry, I would say
Mhm.
that I do follow a lot of people on social media, and especially given with COVID, that I think it's so integral to have those connections. But when it comes to construction, I would say there have been people in my life where they've coached and mentored me, and I've come along. I would say the biggest influence would probably be my dad, but then I've seen other people in the industry as well. When I was in Fort McMurray, a lot of my mentors, they were older. And so when I got into consulting, I was still in my 20s, but my coaches and my mentors, they were, a lot of them were in their, I would say, 50s and 60s. So
Hmm.
being very young, coming into the safety community, by them embracing me, there were organizations as well, such as
Hmm.
the CSSE, which is the Canadian Society of Safety Engineers. I met a lot of good people through that. I was also involved with the Wood Buffalo Regional Safety Committee, which is put on through the ACSA in Alberta, so the Alberta Construction Safety Association. When I came back to Vancouver, I made it a point to get myself out there to volunteer, to sit on different boards, committees, get involved in the community, because I felt like I had established my network out in Alberta, but I was still missing that piece in BC because I had gone away, and I was away for over 10 years. And it felt like there wasn't much of a connection, and I had to come back to my roots and get back into that. I was also a part of the union. So my dad's been with the Teamsters since, I believe, the 70s. And when I was in Fort McMurray, I was with the Operating Engineers Union, Local 955. So I felt like there was a sense of belonging, a sense of community, and that really helped. So I couldn't really peg one person. I would say
Yeah.
it still takes a village, and these organizations and associations really helped with my
Hmm.
professional development, with networking, with getting myself out there, various projects, being on
Hmm.
different sites, and just really strengthening my experience and my education. So I have a whole village of people to thank for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you're talking a lot about community. How important is that in EHS?
Community is huge.
Hmm.
When we retire, and it's so funny because I always say, people ask me, when are you going to retire? And my answer is usually never, because I love what I do. Do
Yeah.
what you love and love what you do. And
Yeah.
so, but realistically, I will have to retire someday. And so, what does that look like? And how do we keep everything going? I did a post on LinkedIn actually recently on legacy and what you're leaving behind.
Hmm.
And I think community is so vital, it's so integral. Just like I had coaches, role models, mentors, leaders, I had people in those positions to help elevate me and bring me up.
Hmm.
I think it's so important that I need to do the same, and I need to
Yeah.
give back. And there's a lot of people coming into health and safety that will need that help. And I think it just comes naturally to me. It's always been in my nature to help where I can. I grew up with um, good parents who instilled good values and morals and ethics and beliefs in all of us. I have three brothers, so there's four of us total. And so just to have that servitude attitude and to give back, it's one of the fundamentals. So we grew up practicing the religion of Sikhism, and so in Sikhism, one of the principles is to give back and to help, and especially for those people that are in need as well. And so it comes back from when I was just a kid, and I think it's really important. It's very important that if you
Yeah.
can, if you have the time, the resources, the knowledge, the experience, it's why not?
Yeah.
It's in it for you to coach and mentor and whatnot. So one of the organizations I'm involved with is called SafeGen. It's a program based in Alberta,
Hmm.
Canada, and it actually gives health and safety presentations to high school students.
Oh,
So
that's cool.
I'm one of their safety ambassadors, and I
Yeah.
love doing it. I absolutely love it. Going into high schools because of COVID, it's virtual. Um, Before that, I was a prior to that, I was a regional safety advisor with the BC Construction Safety Alliance. And so one of the responsibilities or one of the duties with them was also to go into high schools. And so we do have trades programs here in BC as well. And sometimes I would fly, sometimes I would drive. And I absolutely loved it because it's so enriching to give back, and again speaking to that education and experience, and just trying to help them as much as I can, because that is the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I could not agree more. Um, yeah, so my next question is, what is your best mistake and what did you learn from it?
Oh, really good question. What is my best mistake, was it?
Mhm.
Is that where,
Yeah.
okay, so
We
my
like to call it
best,
your best mistake because, mistakes aren't a bad thing. So,
yeah, no, I actually
yeah.
don't believe in mistakes, I believe in lessons
Yeah.
learned.
There you go.
But
Exactly.
having said that, there were a lot of lessons learned when I was in Fort McMurray.
Mhm.
Um, Even when I worked for the government, when I say the government, I worked in the criminal justice system.
Oh, wow.
And so there was a lot of growth, there was a lot of learning. I would say that in terms of mistakes, I would say out of the lessons learned out of those mistakes is to always have an open mind, uh, always go into a conversation listen more than you talk.
Mhm.
And I talk a lot. I would say that um, with that, just having an open mind and trying to absorb as much as you can, gain that experience, because there's a lot of things that you can learn from your leadership groups, from your fellow peers, a lot of times from mentees as well. They can teach you things. And to have that and then just be the best that you can be. Always invest in yourself. No one will ever invest in you as you invest in yourself.
Yeah.
So for example, have like a professional development plan, have some goals, have that work
Mhm.
life balance. I can't even peg down one mistake because I'm thinking of so many right
Yeah.
now.
I feel
um,
that, yeah.
yeah, yeah. I've burnt out before. I have had days where it was work, and I felt
Mhm.
like I had to prove something because I was the youngest, I was the smallest, I was the least experienced, and the circles that I ran in as well. They were highly educated, experienced. They had years to learn, where I felt like I had to catch up, and I've always set the bar really high for myself as a
Mhm.
result of that.
Yeah.
And I mean, don't be so hard on yourself. A lot of times you do need to rest, recover, you need to relax, you need to decompress. You may be involved in risk risky situations, where you take on an occupation, and all my careers, they've always been my choices. I've made that choice to engage and be a part of that career.
Mhm.
But with that, having said that, there is high risk. There's high risk in construction, in the oil sands, in the working in law enforcement, the criminal justice system, and
Absolutely.
really taking on that lens and that approach, and just taking a step back, and the cardinal, the proverbial work hard, play hard. So
Mhm.
if you feel like you're coming on the brinks, maybe you should just take a day.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. My
Yeah.
old college professor used to always tell me it's not work if you love it, it's always play,
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, what is your favorite and least favorite part about working in EHS, and would you change anything?
I would not change anything. And I get
Mm.
asked this sometimes, if
Mhm.
there's anything that you could change in your life, what would it be, or a decision made? And I always say, good or bad, I would not change anything in my life because I wouldn't be the person I am in front of you today had I not made those choices and decisions. I think a lot of times the choices and decisions that we make, if it's a bad decision, you learn from it. If it's a good decision, there's nothing but good that comes out of it. And so taking that opportunity, learning how to embrace failure as well, um, success, having somebody who's successful, that just means that that person just never gave up. They may have failed 100 times, 1,000 times, but on that 101 or 1,001, that's when they achieved and they succeeded and they just never gave up. And for where I'm at, everything that I've gone through, where I've come to where I am now, and where I'm still going. I mean, I'm not even 40 yet, so there's a lot
Yeah,
more
yeah. You got a long way to go, yeah.
way. Definitely, definitely for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, I hope that
yeah.
answered the question.
Yeah, no, you're good. The first
Yeah.
part was what's your favorite or least favorite part, if you wanna touch on that?
Yeah, I would say my favorite part about health and safety is that interaction and that socializing and really getting that feeling of helping people. And it's so rewarding when, especially when people come back and like sometimes it's so random. Um, I'll have like former clients or colleagues, and they'll message me out of the blue, and they're like, "Remember that safe work procedure that you helped us on?" Or remember when you helped us with that safety manual, and we needed help with our safety program? Thank you so much. And it's that feeling, honestly, like money cannot buy that.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
just it's so rewarding and I absolutely love it. And if I can help somebody, why would I not? Why wouldn't
yeah,
I?
yeah.
And a lot of my close family, friends, colleagues, they all know I'm just a call or a message away. Um,
Mhm,
and so just to really be open, and so I love that part, that human interaction. And again, during COVID, I know COVID broke a lot of people. I know a lot of people were, if not the brinks of mental health. I believe that COVID was a catalyst for that. There's goods and bads that came out of it, but to further solidify and instill those like social interactions and that human to human contact. That is honestly what I love about my work, about my job, and having those connections, having a very supporting community. I sit on various boards, associations, and so it's really having that feeling of, hey, you know what? Like I'm a part of this. I belong. And then also on the other side, it's so rewarding when there's others that come to you and say, hey, you know what, like you really helped us, or without your guidance or your knowledge or your mentorship, we wouldn't be where we are. And I absolutely love it. It really, it warms my heart. It really does.
yeah, yeah,
And it's good for your soul by
yeah,
reaching out
for
and
sure.
helping. It's so good. And
Yeah,
like I said, like why wouldn't you, right? So I would say that's my favorite part. My least favorite part, I don't know, that's like a tough one. What do I
mhm.
not enjoy about my work? Or what do I not necessarily like? Or what's my least favorite? Um, I honestly can't think of anything.
That's
I
great
can't.
then, that means you're in the right place, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
Like I love
that's awesome.
the challenge. I love meeting with people. I love the professional development. I always want to keep myself informed and educated,
Mhm,
especially when it comes to things that are progressing, such as regulation or common industry trends or what's
mhm,
going on. Connecting with people. And one thing that was good that came out of COVID was We went from having meetings in person to now I can join a Zoom meeting from halfway across the world and I
Mhm.
can learn about health and safety related topics.
Yeah.
So it's been awesome in that sense and really connecting with people globally as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, we've kind of touched a little bit on mental health a lot. So, can you speak to kind of the importance of taking care of your mental health in a safety job? Because I know a lot of EHS is focused on physical safety and incidents, and how does your mental health impact that?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So in health and safety, there's um, physical injuries that you can see, and then there's invisible injuries sustained that you cannot see. And so, specifically looking at that, those I'm referring to anything that's psychological. So, trauma, anxiety, depression, anything in that sphere, or anything that involves your mental health. Um, I believe that you can't help yourself if you can't help yourself, you can't help others. And so it's really important, just like we go, like suppose you have an injury and you go to see your doctor. If you're suffering from anything that's mental health related, you need to seek those resources and have those supports in place. And I believe that we didn't have as much as we do now. I'm looking at like pre-COVID and then during
Yes.
COVID.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
so there wasn't much. We were as a safety community, we were starting to talk about it, but we
Mhm.
weren't there yet.
Yeah.
And now because of COVID, like I believe that COVID was a catalyst. Either people were struggling already, or it was
Mhm.
because of COVID that a lot of things came out of this.
Yeah.
And it's so crucial. It's so important to be mindful of your own mental health and put
Yeah.
things in place where you're prioritizing your own mental health and your own well-being, and have routines in place for self-care. And
Absolutely.
so, for example, like myself, the fact that these are first world problems, the fact that I couldn't travel, it was really irking me. But then I
Yeah.
changed my frame of thought, and I was actually talking to my counselor, my therapist about this,
Mhm.
which I wasn't open about before. But during COVID, I was very forthright and honest, and I think a lot of people do have counselors and therapists, and they have people
Oh,
in place. And
I've had a therapist since I was a child, so
yeah, yes,
so, yeah, you're not alone in that at all,
yeah.
and no neither is anyone else. Yeah.
Now that I'm in my 30s, I can openly talk about it. But in my
Mhm.
20s, there was still a bit of a stigma attached. And so I
Yeah.
remember telling people, I'd be like, oh, well, I have a doctor's appointment, or I have a hair
Yeah.
appointment. And I would just dodge it altogether because I was afraid of exposing that piece of me. I felt like I was broken. And I've been
Absolutely,
through
yeah.
traumas myself,
Yeah.
and so to progress and move forward from that, I think that everybody needs to invest. And so going back to the original question, how important is mental health? Mental health is so important. It's crucial.
Mhm.
You need to have that self awareness, and whether it be your peer group, other supports, other resources. I mean, there's tons of articles, podcasts, videos. There's
Mhm.
lots of memes that you can relate to.
Absolutely.
There's so much out there, and you got to really take it upon yourself to arm yourself with that knowledge
Yeah.
and reach out. Like if you need help, just don't keep saying that you're okay when you're not.
Yeah.
I unfortunately had a tragedy within my family. My aunt passed away due to mental health in November of
Oh, I'm so
2020.
sorry.
Thank you. Thanks. And
Yeah.
so I was talking about mental health all of 2020 when COVID had hit, but I
Mhm.
never once thought it would be so personal and hit me so hard. And
Mhm.
so when I got that phone call that day, it was just there was so much. And like I talked to my counselor about this, And so we talked through all the feelings and everything that was going on. And it was a lot. And then just like my aunt had been struggling and she was fighting with this, I was thinking about all the other pieces of my life and how this was affecting, for example, the safety community, where we were
Right.
the support, we were those front line trying to engage with the workforce. And I'll speak specifically to the construction industry, the boots on the ground,
Yeah.
and speaking to people about their mental health. And it's so important. It's so important. You need to take care of yourself, seek out whatever resources so that you have that ability to help others. And another thing I say is it's okay not to be okay.
Yeah.
And you don't need to put up a front. You don't need to be um, this knight in shining armor, or
Hmm.
be that the proverbial safety professional that has their shit together. Sorry, I'm not sure if I can swear
No,
or not.
you're good. You're totally fine. You're all
And
good.
it's perfectly okay to not have it all together, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, and
And
nobody does. Anyone who says they
yeah.
do is pretending. Yeah.
One of the many things I love about tech, because I got into the tech industry a year ago, was
Mhm.
how open they are. And so,
Yeah.
for example, at Salus, we have personal days that you can take off. So if you're not having a good day, and it doesn't have to necessarily be anything that's physical, it could be an invisible injury or it could be psychological. We have an excellent employee program in place. So EAP, Employee Assistance Program, where it's all confidential. You can go and talk to somebody. You can seek out those resources or that support, and having that solid core and foundation. I grew up in so immigrant parents. They came from India, and we didn't really necessarily talk about our feelings. And so that's one thing where, like, I love my family because we're very affectionate. We're
Mhm.
okay hugging, and I do that with my nieces and nephews now.
Mhm.
But to have those conversations and looking at that next generation. And so
Yeah.
sometimes I'll, like, with little people, they're so fascinating.
Mhm.
And sometimes you can tell, like, they're frustrated or they're not having a good day. And
Yeah.
so you ask them to talk out your feelings. And that's one of the things. So I read like parenting journals just to have more of a meaningful interaction with the little people in my life. And
Yeah.
so I asked them to use words, and I'm like, okay, tell me what you're thinking. Like,
Mhm.
speak your thoughts, right? And use
Yeah.
your words. So, like, it's really interesting, and I think we could almost take that concept and apply it to adults as well.
Mhm.
And to
Yeah.
really, again, going back to that self recognition and that self awareness and self talk as well. It is so important to have a healthy relationship with yourself and be good to yourself. Be your own cheerleader, be your own number one, right? And look at exactly what it is that you're doing in your life. Like, what is it that you want to do? What are your goals? How are you going to get there? If you need a day off, you need to verbalize that. You need to let whoever it is, your family, friends, colleagues, coworkers, whether you're going to school, whether you're going to work and you have a job, and to verbalize that and say that I need some time, just to process or decompress or whatever it is. um, have some alone time. And I admit, like, I'm very guilty of stacking my schedule. I've worked shift work all my life, so ever since from 18 to, I would say, about a year ago. Now I'm on it's a very, again, technology, very
Mhm.
flexible. So I work Monday to Friday, 9 to 5.
Mhm.
um, my outlet is, I love, okay, so even though I'm health and safety, I love I love kickboxing. I ride motorcycles. I
Nice.
jump out of perfectly good planes. I love to go bungee jumping, skydiving, rock climbing, cliff hanging, like
That's so
you name
funny. That's so awesome. I bet you do it safer than anyone else, though.
it. Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
I
so
mean, I'm
funny.
very, very conscious of it. I think like you
Yeah.
almost have a heightened awareness when you're in health and safety.
Yeah.
I think subconsciously you like analyze your risk and you think to yourself, okay, like what is the worst case scenario?
Oh,
What's like
yeah.
the worst that could happen? And then you
Yeah.
just kind of work backwards from there, right?
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. For me, that's just anxiety. That's not being an EHS professional, but yeah.
Yeah, it is
Yeah.
my outlet.
That's awesome, though. That's really cool. Yeah, so speaking of kind of applying those concepts to adults, what are your thoughts on safety culture and how can company leaders make safety a value within their organizations?
Yeah, I think safety culture it's bigger now than
Mhm.
it ever was before. And that's because the world changed. It wasn't like geographically bound to a specific jurisdiction. It was a global pandemic, meaning that everybody on planet Earth was affected by what had happened, whether it was directly or indirectly. And with a lot of organizations, they had to change and pivot the way they looked at things, their perspective. It was fear of the unknown when it first hit North America in I want to say I believe it was January was in the States, and then in March is when it came out to Canada. And so when that came, people had to re-strategize. People had to look at exactly what was going on and what was happening. And so there was a reevaluation, and even with culture, because with the pandemic, one thing that came out of it was remote work. A lot of times, um, people thought to themselves, or employers specifically, they had the mindset where they wanted to see people come into the office and produce and making sure that they could see them. And so what happened with the pandemic was everybody was home, but they still had to work. And so now a lot of people started working remotely. And so when you work remotely, there's a bit of social isolation. But then
Mhm.
how do you make your worker feel valued? How do you
Yeah.
make them feel like they're still a part of that organization?
Mhm.
One of my sister-in-laws, she works HR, and
Oh,
so
wow.
I've had a
Yeah.
conversation about culture before with her, organizational behavior, and so
Mhm.
we were talking about how there was a lot of movements that came out also out of this era. So, for example, there was Me Too that was going on, and then during COVID, there was the Black Lives Matters, and then you look at International Women's Day that just happened, and there is you look at like diversity and inclusivity, and you look at equality for women or people of the BIPOC community. So these are concepts that never really, I think that they were never highlighted um, up until COVID happened. And so out of that stemmed the concept of culture, because culture wasn't spoke about, or not very many people spoke to safety culture up until now. And so, even with like looking at different ageism and looking at different eras, so a lot of, I believe it's Gen Z and millennials, they're coming into the workforce as well. And so, having said that, their values are different. They're very different than baby boomers, for example, as well. And looking at what is their like what is their trade-off, almost like if they come into work, what are they being compensated with? And with them, it's not necessarily it doesn't come down to like a financial reward or monetary. What else does this workplace have to offer? Is it a safe environment for me to come into? Is there like a feeling of inclusivity? How is their culture? Like these questions are being asked. And I believe before it was the employer would be interviewing the potential employee. And now it's almost like the tables have turned and the
Yeah.
potential employee is interviewing the employer, asking them what they can offer
Yeah.
outside of just basically what their wages are. Like, what
Yeah.
else is there to it?
Absolutely.
Is this a place where I want to come into work? Work life balance or having that work life harmony? What does that look like?
Yeah. For sure. For sure. So speaking of that, where do you see the industry heading in like 5 years? Are you seeing any trends now? What's kind of your insight there?
I would say that there's definitely a push for um, having a safer workplace. When I say safer workplace, I mean both physically as well as mentally or
Hmm.
psychologically as well. So there
Yeah.
is still that push for having like safe spaces where there's no bullying, no harassment, no
Hmm.
discrimination, that
Yeah.
everybody gets treated equally despite whatever their sex, gender, orientation, caste, sect, creed, whatever it may be,
Hmm.
that there is equal opportunity as well. I believe that there's a huge emphasis on that, having people be involved, be inclusive. I know specifically looking at construction industry, there's still such a shortage, and when it comes to the labor, the workforce as well.
Hmm.
And because of COVID, I know that immigration was it came to basically a standstill. There was a bit of a halt.
Yeah.
There was a lot of restructuring that took place. There are a lot of things coming out of that. Again, like going back to the mental health as well.
Hmm.
Um, I think those are the hot topics.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Especially things like ESG. I think we actually have an ESG week coming up in a couple months at my
Okay.
publication. Yeah. So that
Yeah.
should be fun.
Nice.
All right. So to pivot more to you personally, what are you most proud of?
Oh, good question. Um, I would say I am most proud of, I would say being a good person or trying to be a good
Yeah.
person. I
Yeah.
mean, I work so hard at helping and giving back to the
Mhm.
community, the industry. What am I most proud of? I mean, I could sit here and name off all my designations and achievements and all my
Yeah.
credentials and all the schooling and awards that I've won and recognition. But
Mhm.
like when you sum it down, when you come down to the core fundamentals and beliefs, like again, going back to that, what am I leaving behind and what is my legacy? Just to be a good person,
Yeah.
just
Absolutely.
to be kind, be caring, understand where others are coming from, try and help wherever you can, whatever that may
Yeah.
look like. And I would say that is what I'm most proud of.
That's a great thing to be proud of. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's a great thing to be proud of. Yeah.
I
So my
mean,
last
my work,
question.
yeah, I was just
You're
my
good.
work speaks for itself, and
Yeah.
um, like I'm always like really humble because people highlight my achievements, and I'm
Mhm.
still not sure like how to take it. I'm just kind of I almost like shy away from it. I'm like thanks, and
Yeah. Yeah.
I was talking to my
Yeah.
personal trainer and the other day, and she's like, she was telling I think one of her other clients about me, and she's like,
That's
yeah, and
awesome.
yeah. She's like Amandeep. So what? Like one of my goals was I've been on a bit of a weight loss journey, and it's just kind of always been up and down. And I believe we
Yeah.
were talking about that earlier. The pictures and the videos, how it adds or
Yeah.
takes away.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so, I mean, that would be like an achievement too. Would it be my greatest? Yeah, when you put things into context or like everything is relative. So,
Yeah, exactly,
yeah,
for sure. Yeah. So then my last question is, do you have any advice for people entering, the field of EHS?
I would say one of the most important things that I was told and I instilled right from the get go was to network
Mhm.
and put yourself out there, speak to people, get involved with these organizations, build and work on yourself. So, have like a professional development plan, have goals. So, I
Mhm.
have short term goals and long term.
Yeah.
And like my goals, they're not just only work, it's work, education, or academic. What are my spiritual goals, my financial goals, my personal goals?
Yeah.
What am I wanting to do, or what exactly is it that I'm wanting to get out of life, right? Pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so networking, have a professional development plan, have your goals, look into different education. I've hired and let go of people in the past, and
Mhm.
looking at someone's education experience, and then it comes down to having good people skills as well,
Mhm.
right? And so,
Yeah.
for example, if you feel like there's an area where you can improve on, or like have a weakness. So, for example, I do public speaking quite a bit, and I
Mhm.
engage in that. One way to help me with that is I joined Toastmasters. And so with Toastmasters, they help you with your public speaking.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
yeah, yeah. And just to work on yourself, and don't be so hard on yourself either. I mean, you're going to have good days and not so good days. And
Yeah.
you may have like a tall list of things to do and things to complete, and just because you don't make that list, it doesn't make you a failure. It just means that you just have to try again the next day and the day after, and eventually when you get to that goal.
Yeah. That means you're a human being, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for your time. This was a pleasure. It's been so good getting to know you, and I'm sure that our audience is going to love to hear everything that you have to say.
Thank you so much.